Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining. We are with Kristy Greenberg. She and I actually just did All In on MSNBC talking about this burgeoning scandal, and I think we agreed it's big stuff, and there's a lot more to discuss than we could do in our 10 minutes with Chris Hayes. So she's kindly agreed 3 hours later to join me. Kristy, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start here. The sort of scorecard lineup, which I think is just a nightmare for the Trump, Emile Bove, Pam Bondi forces on one side of the rule of law here. You were the deputy chief of the criminal division. Bove was in that division. Danielle Sassoon, the acting U.S. attorney who just resigned, was there, and a couple other people, by the way, some, again, really credentialed. One of the members of her team on this case was a former John Roberts clerk. She's a former Scalia clerk. And I think you have a little sense, too, of Bove and her. Just can you give us a little bit of the color of the kind of people we're talking about?
Sure. So I encountered Danielle when she was a line prosecutor in the violent and organized crime unit. And one of the cases that she was responsible for, which I had the opportunity to review her prosecution memo and her indictment for approval, was a case involving Lawrence Ray. He's an individual who had been involved in a years-long predatory crime against students at Sarah Lawrence College. Really just egregious and awful conduct involving sex trafficking of multiple students, including his daughter. And she was the lead prosecutor in that case. And I can say that her prosecution memo and her indictment and just how thorough and thoughtful she was, she just struck me in a place where really SDNY is a place of stars. There, she was a star among stars. And really just her work ethic, I couldn't have been more impressed with her. And that continued even after I left the office, seeing her cross-examination of Sam Bankman-Fried. I mean, she's done some really, really impressive work, obviously in the violent crime space, but also in the white collar space.
And it was Trump, the new administration, who just put her in recently to be the acting U.S. attorney, right? So obviously they were persuaded of her bona fides.
Yes, absolutely. You can't argue that she's the deep state that we're trying to root out when you picked her, and
Yeah.
and when she is clearly credentialed, Harvard, Yale Law, Scalia clerk, Federalist Society member. I mean, she really has sterling credentials, and she really backs it up with being a very impressive prosecutor.
Right. Okay. So she gets this letter from Bove, a pretty high-handed one, on earlier in the week, and then there's radio silence. He's demanded that she file a motion to dismiss. So I think people who understood the office knew that she was giving it some serious thought. The killer part of the letter to me, what jumped out at the time, was a little statement saying, "Oh, yeah, we haven't looked at the evidence here. Oh, we don't have anything about the legal theories." So that, that's the same thing as saying, we are ignoring what matters completely in every case, what makes prosecutions be without fear or favor, the facts and the law. The prosecutors say them so much that people, just it feels like they're droning, but that's the whole soul of what the office does. So it was very telling that Bove was saying, it's not in facts or law, but do it anyway. And there's a little bit of now of a side sort of skirmish I wanted to ask you about involving Adams and one reason that they may be looking to do this. But to my mind, it almost doesn't matter. Even if it's just Trump wanting to show that, oh, look how bad that DOJ is. Even they did it to Democrats, and whatever reason there is, if it's not, if the facts and the law say this is a righteous case, you do the case. If it doesn't, you don't do the case. That's the end of the line. So when he said, "Oh, by the way, facts and law, we got nothing there," my head spun around, right?
As it should. I thought that that may, and again, I'm reading into this, I have no inside knowledge as to what he was thinking, but when he was making a point of saying, I'm not questioning the evidence or the law, I'm not questioning that this team of prosecutors below former US Attorney Damian Williams conducted this investigation with integrity. I'm not questioning that. And I'm not questioning that you, Danielle Sassoon, in inheriting this case and continuing with it, also acted with integrity. And I think he thought by saying, I'm not questioning the law and the facts, and I'm not questioning you all, maybe they'd be more willing to take the direction and go along with it. That
Right.
may have been his calculation. I can't say. Quite honestly, I think he would have been better off if he wanted to get to this end result to actually engage with the facts and the law, if in fact he had a problem. But he made it clear that he didn't. And in fact, when Danielle Sassoon responded in her blistering memo, she said, well, as you know, we were proposing a superseding indictment because we
Right.
have
Of
even more
course. Yeah.
evidence that he obstructed justice and he's providing false information to the FBI and directing others to destroy evidence, which, whatever you may want to say about the strength of the bribery count as it's listed in, in the indictment, you can't really quibble with when you're destroying evidence and you're telling others to do so as well. Like, that is really strong consciousness of guilt. That you are doing something wrong, creating fake paper trails. All of that was in the indictment. It just wasn't charged as an obstruction count. And they said they felt the evidence was strong enough. They were going to bring that extra charge. And that to me was just such a damning statement from her in this letter to show, no, when Mayor Adams and his lawyers are getting out there and saying that he is innocent, no, he is not.
Yeah, it's so fundamental, of course, to what the broader mission of the Department of Justice. Something like that happens, you go after it very hard. Now, Bove, man, I think he was he really got his back up, wrote a foolishly long letter that he's going to regret. But if you push hard, seems to be giving two reasons why. The first, and they both suck. The first is, as you're saying, there's this skirmish about was he or was he not Adams trying to do a quid pro quo. The second, where I think he really meant to kind of plant his flag, is saying, we've determined that there was weaponization here, meaning that it was an improper, politically motivated prosecution in the first place. You may not question that, says Adams to Sassoon. You must take that as established. Now, if it had been established, I think it would be a factor, right? If it were. But of course, the number one thing you would think of to figure out, did they do something wrong here and weaponize it, is the facts and the law. Again, you would say, oh, no, 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 we didn't. Look what we did. We brought our solid, righteous case. So he was in a contradiction already. And I don't know. I don't think this is going away. First of all, we were around in 2021 when the department senior leadership all told Trump in the showdown in the Oval Office, we won't do what you're trying to say. We know about the Saturday Night Massacre. The thing about this is we are in free fall, right? He brings it into main justice, and now we have, and you can speak to this. We're talking about some heavy, heavy guns. All the 3 or 4 people in public integrity and the chief of the whole criminal division in DOJ have all resigned, and they'll find someone. But I mean, it is a plunge deep, and in some sense, in terms of just one after the other department attorney showing her his bona fides, it's the biggest pushback, you got to say, in DOJ history. No?
I mean, it's certainly significant. The one thing I will say is it is different for me than when Jeff Berman resigned in a few respects. When Jeff Berman resigned and he recounted kind of the back and forth in his book of being told by Trump administration officials to, maybe you want to even things out. Like, let's look at some Democrats too.
Right.
Those
He was the
initial
U.S. attorney who was doing the case before. Right. Yeah. So go ahead.
Right. So when Jeff Berman, when he was U.S. attorney, was saying, "Hey, I'm being told by DOJ officials to do things to pursue political targets," those individuals later came out and denied that and said that didn't happen. But here, it's in black and white. Like,
That's right. He
we
put it
can
right
see
down the right.
ourselves. There is no question about whether or not there is a direction here to do something political. I mean, the quid pro quo jumps off the page, and the quo is actually happening, hours after Danielle Sassoon resigned. You've got Mayor Adams meeting with, immigration officials and the Homeland Security Department. So it's really extraordinary. The other distinction I would make is, Jeff Berman clearly exhibited, I think, quite a lot of courage, and there was a lot of pride in the office when he did resign. But I would note, and this isn't to take away from what he did, but he was an older gentleman. He was established. He had already been a partner at a law firm previously. He was established in the legal community for quite some time. These individuals, Danielle Sassoon is 38 years old. I also mentioned she's 8 months pregnant, dealing with all of this stress, which can't be good. And again, just makes her, in my mind, more of a hero, and so much pride that I have in for what she's done today. I think really just takes such a testament to her character. But these other prosecutors from SDNY that he's placed on leave, who are on the team, I mean, these are young prosecutors. These are
Yeah.
prosecutors who
They're
have
losing
not
their jobs,
been
right? Yeah.
partners at law firms, don't have, like, this is their livelihood. They're in, the beginnings of their careers, trying to establish their reputations. And so for, Emile Bove to write such a heavy-handed letter and to say that they're under investigation and leave it so open-ended as to what that would look like. I mean, this is scary stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And look, and you and I are sort of rule of law nerds, but it feels to me like this is the kind of thing that'll be pretty easy for people to understand. And again, it's not going away. I don't see what their play is, because they're going to want to dismiss the case. In retrospect, they'd have been so much better off to just pardon them. But now they're stuck. I think they're going to want to dismiss the case. And I don't know if you've been involved when you were deputy chief in similar situations, but give us your sense now that the case is filed. A grand jury has returned it. It's got a judge, Dale Ho, who's a district court judge in SDNY. What happens next, and how does this fight play out?
Well, to your point, one of the interesting parts of this is that all of this really could have been avoided. Danielle Sassoon's letter, she says to AG Bondi, "We've never met. We've never talked about this case. I'd really like the opportunity to do that. I don't know why we're rushing. Like, let's take some time. Let me walk you through this." The
And
deputy,
if I can interrupt for just 1 second, she then says, "Okay, and if not, I will offer my resignation." And Bove just says in a nasty way, "Your resignation is accepted." Doesn't even respond to that. Like, can I please talk to the attorney general? Sorry, go ahead.
I just found that to be so extraordinary, because really, again, she's 8 months pregnant. She's going to be taking her leave in a month. And you've got to figure the new U.S. attorney who will go through his confirmation process, Jake Clayton, you would expect that he would be confirmed. And you would also expect, for the fact that he was the person way back, several years ago, who was being slated to replace Jeff Berman if Trump got his way. He didn't. And now is being slated to take over that role. I mean, they must expect that he's going to play ball and do Trump's bidding. I don't know that he will, but they at least seem to expect that. So why not just punt this for a month? She's not playing ball. She wants to meet. Take the meeting, go through the evidence, review things with her, get yourself for a couple of weeks, and then you don't have to have this play out publicly at all. Like, it's just the height of arrogance that they would say, "No, we're going to write this very long memo," and really kind of doom themselves, shoot themselves in the foot in the process. Because now, as Danielle Sassoon points out in her letter, this is going to go before a judge. Somebody from the Department of Justice is going to file this motion to dismiss, and a judge has to consider it. And what Danielle Sassoon is really imploring Judge Ho to do is to really give a hard look at this and say, is this in the interests of justice based on the reasons that have been given by the acting deputy attorney general? The answer is clearly no. And again, like, judges have limited discretion here to look at these, but she cites plenty of law here and plenty of reasons why the judge really has to ask tough questions. I expect he will.
I expect he will and put witnesses on the stand. I mean, I think it'll be Bove. It could potentially be Bondi, who I want to say has been really disappointing in this first week. I don't know what we expected, but she comes right out and basically smears the attorney she's now supervising. This stops now. We've had criminalization, and it's just again without any case where there's some indication, well, here's where the facts and law didn't fit. That is the, absolute DNA, as I'd say, of the department, and they followed it. And by the way, you're so right. These, people in that office, which is premier in the country, stick around for a while, and then they go out. These guys are really being forced to leave early, but I do think it's in a situation now where it just can't be smothered. They'll find someone, they'll make the motion, and then I think the judge will want to really, as you say, scrutinize. And that just means the table is so set. There's not really a factual dispute. They said dismiss the case even though the facts and law are solid. What the hell are you going to say about that? And I think that will come home. And by the way, maybe we'll know in 24 hours. Somebody, I guess, will salute and actually file a Rule 48 motion. But they are in a free fall, and I wouldn't want to be either the guy who says, who it falls to do, or the person who finally says yes, because they're going to go into court and just get, really scrutinized. And I think Bove looks terrible. So this is for sure the biggest pushback and scandal, I think, of the young administration's less than month in office.
Harry, one point on the factual, whether there's a factual dispute. I agree that there generally isn't one. However, there is one that I found very striking, which is when Danielle Sassoon says that Adams' attorneys repeatedly urged what amounted to quid pro quo, and that they indicated in these meetings that Danielle Sassoon, her team, and Adams' attorneys were all in together, that Mayor Adams is in a position to help with the department's enforcement priorities only if the indictment were dismissed. And that then Mr. Boovie admonished a member of her team when he was taking notes and directed that he would collect the notes from that individual at the meeting's conclusion.
That's a mob lawyer deal, right? Yeah, no, look, you're totally right. All I mean by saying no dispute is they concede that they didn't do it on facts and law, and that's all. But this is going to come up. It's a bad day for Eric Adams for sure. It may, things are not going away. And by the way, you can think of scenarios where he winds up being charged by in general. I just think even if their will is forced through, it's a real black eye that it's got to be in the annals of the 2021 meeting, the Saturday Night Massacre. This is, and don't you think within the whole department now, the 94 U.S. attorneys' offices, etc., the new guard are just, they're villains, right? Somebody has, stood up and done what everyone swears to do, what everyone's proud of doing, what everyone gives up money, as you say, in order to be able to do. And the new guard is just, slapping them around. They are going to be a very unpopular, I think, brass within DOJ.
Well, and it's sobering too, because again, Emile Bove was an SDNY prosecutor. So was Todd Blanche. So for them to be taking this position now in their leadership roles at DOJ, when we were all taught better, this is not.
And they were taught better, right? Yeah.
Our office. So while I am so proud of Danielle Sassoon and her team, it is still very sobering to see former SDNY prosecutors behave in this way. I mean, confiscating notes from a meeting to try and, I guess, then claim that things were not said that were, and quibbling over whether it's a quid pro quo and, like, on the face of your own letter, that's the only way to possibly read this. I mean, it's not only disgraceful, it's so embarrassing. And I think that will all be exposed in rather humiliating fashion when Judge Ho holds his hearing.
Yeah, not going away. And you saw, of course, Bove wanting to be good by the president, who was asked, "Did you?" Oh, I didn't know anything about this. But obviously Bove is trying to do his bidding. Kristy, I think you and I'll have more to be thinking about and talking about. For one, I want to know how much this free fall will continue until somebody finally agrees to do this nasty bit of business. But I agree with you. It's, at a minimum, we're going to see a judge really push hard on DOJ, and it just looks super ugly.
Talking Feds is supported by the Brennan Center for Justice. In this new political era, the Brennan Center will do what they do best: defend the Constitution and the rule of law. They're prepared to fight against presidential overreach and will continue advocating for reforms to resist weaponized government, stop billionaires from corrupting our elections, and ensure every eligible American has the freedom to vote. Stay informed by visiting BrennanCenter.org.
The last thing I would say is there is one person who has some power here to at least stop a part of this. And I mean, Judge Hochul really, if you look at, sorry, not Judge Hochul, Governor Hochul has the ability to remove Mayor Adams. And whether or not Mayor Adams is guilty or innocent of what he is charged with, the accusations that Danielle Sassoon made that his attorneys have represented that the only way that they would enforce Donald Trump's immigration priorities is if this indictment was dismissed. If that is true, he should be removed because he is acting in his own interests and not in the interests of the people of New York. So I'm really curious as to what Governor Hochul will do about Mayor Adams, because that to me is just so damning.
It's a great point. So this is now a burgeoning scandal on at least two landscapes: federal court and New York state politics. Man, oh man. Kristy Greenberg, a pleasure as always to be with you on TV, to be with you here, and hope to be with you in the coming weeks as this plays out.
Thank you for having me, Harry.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.